Welcome to another episode of This Week on Disney YouTube with Mr. Theme Park Conductor. We are reacting. It's a fresh baked double whammy today. We got two fresh baked videos, one about Josh D'Amaro and one about the bus system at the Disneyland Resort. We have a lot to discuss today, a lot to break down. I got the one, the only Mr. Choo Choo Theme Park Conductor with me and his buddy Boba Fett and Bowser behind him. Thank you for watching, and here we go. Let's get it. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of This Week in Disney YouTube with Theme Park Conductor. Conductor, it's always good to have you on the show. How you doing, man?
It's doing well. It's doing well. I'm still blown away with all this breaking news about Josh becoming the new CEO. Then I had a legendary figure on my Conductor Sunday live stream, the one and only Hey Bricky.
Yes,
Things just keep escalating more and more for the positive. So I'm in a wonderful spot. So it's been great.
Yeah, that was a great show. It was myself, Conductor. Conductor was an amazing host. Conductor was hosting. It was him, myself, Tommy Toon, and the one and the only Hey Bricky. And we went for 4 hours on that live stream, dude. 4 hours of magic.
You know what? That's what I always say. You know, all of us share the passion about the theme parks and just the industry in general. Yeah. And sometimes when you start getting those deep discussions, man, you lose track of time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and that's what I love about this stuff. And that's why, you know, because we can all get together and kind of nerd out together. Like that's what, you know, you and I were doing that today. We bring, you know, our friends on, we nerd out, you know. I mean, it's crazy because when I was a kid, there was internet, you know, but it wasn't like this where you can really connect with like-minded fans and what have you. Nowadays, like, you know, you can link up with anybody around the world and talk about the thing that you love the most. So I think it's pretty awesome, you know. So, but Conductor, where can everybody find you on social media? How can they subscribe and show love to Theme Park Conductor?
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor, Instagram at theme_park_conductor, on X at Theme Conductor, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we have amazing guests like the one and only Orange Go 55 with that wild, wicked patent hairstyle that I love so much. And we have Tommy Toon World with his world famous food reviews, the one and only Hey Bricky that we just had on this previous Sunday. I call him the modern day Walt Disney himself, with just the thought process, the breakdowns of any subject he's talking about when it comes to the theme parks. Just an absolute intelligent guy to have. And then so many others, as you know, like OG said, we go on the live stream, we nerd out. We nerd out with the chat. The chat nerds out with us. It's such a great time. And you know what? What better way to have close friends just nerd out online? Come on.
You can't beat it. You can't beat it. And we're gonna nerd out hardcore today. We're talking buses, and we're talking buses because this is not just the buses. I think there might be some bigger ramifications here with what's going on. So you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Bigger story than you might think. They're just buses after all, but it's going to affect how just about all of us get to Disneyland. So the questions are, why are the art buses closing? Money. How will this affect you as a guest? Mostly talking to the Toy Story parking lot guests. And how is Disney involved in this decision, and what are they going to do about it? I got you on all of those questions, and we're going to start with really, what are the art buses? I'm sure every one of you have seen art buses traveling around the Disneyland Resort. They are those big blue buses, says art right on there, dropping guests off at the harbor side of things, transporting guests back and forth from hotels and other places around the Disneyland Resort. And most notably, the art buses are the buses that take guests from the Toy Story parking lot into Disneyland. That's a private, separate contract that Disney has made with the art buses. By the way, art buses are not owned by Disney. They are, well, it's a private nonprofit organization, and they provide travel or transportation services for all over Anaheim. When you go to the Toy Story parking lot and you ride on our bus, that is not a Disney-owned bus. It's not a Disney-operated bus, technically. But Disney contracts with them to provide that service for a fee, I'm sure. And that Toy Story conversation is probably the most important thing in terms of, how it's going to affect you, which we're going to get to in a minute. But with those gone, there's no transportation from the Toy Story parking lot to Disneyland. But before we get into that conversation, let's talk about first why the art buses are closing. And I feel like it's pretty obvious to say it's an issue of money, but not because it's something of greed per se. It's just the way the economy today is such that it weeds out anything that is inefficient. As I mentioned, the art buses are nonprofit, which means that they don't operate or have an ability really to control how much revenue they earn. It is actually quite fixed. There's a 5% assessment on local hotels. There is I don't want to call it a tax, but a certain percentage of what you pay for your hotel room is then diverted. It's assessed or given to the art buses. The issue with that is that it's capped. It's capped at that 5%, meaning there's a limit. There's an absolute limit to how much revenue can be generated and dispersed to the art buses. It is not.
It's interesting. He's right. It's definitely a money thing, but I also wonder too, because that whole bus load unload area is, going to be incorporated into DCA eventually. We have the Eastern Gateway that's going to start up, I think in the fall, if I'm not mistaken. So, Disney was going to have to address the buses anyway, kind of, right? Because I mean, with that bus load unload area being shut down, like, yeah, you can pick people up at the Toy Story lot, but where would they drop them off? So I'm wondering if that was also incorporated into their decision making, where it's like, well, we're going to be losing this bus load unload area at the Disneyland Resort. The money's not there. Shut it down. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, see, it's interesting because I think David suggests that, coming up, but to kind of beat him to the punch was, I think what Disney's going to do, because again, I'm going off what Bricky said during our live stream, because we talked about the third gate, because you and I had nerdy questions about the third gate possibly being a Westcott.
Oh, yeah.
And he said what his thought process was, that the third gate might not be touched, if I understand this correctly, for another 10 years, because that is something they're looking at to incorporate, attractions, experiences from international parks like the Abu Dhabi park, which is going to be totally state of the art. You have some of the Asia parks that have already, paid Disney and built the R&D. So I kind of feel like we might be like 10 years away from the third gate being developed. Maybe I'm wrong, but my whole thing is,
I think you're right on that for sure.
But if I am right, and David's going to mention it, is I think as a temporary solution, I think what's going to wind up happening is Disney's going to buy the art buses for temporary, because you have to think about, we're at least about 2.5 years from the Eastern Gateway project being built. And Disney can't expect people to walk from the Toy Story parking lot all the way to the front gate. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell. That would just be bad show. So I think what they might do, and I'm just going to go off the rails here, what they might do is use the Lilo and Stitch parking lot as the bus drop off and load area temporarily, since that lot's not being used
Yeah.
for expansion just yet.
That's a great point, conductor. Great point. Yeah, you're probably right.
Not subject to capitalism in any way. There's no effort for them to try to create more revenue. They can't sell a ticket. They can't increase the prices. They can't do any of that. It's capped at 5% of the hotel assessment. Now, the issue with that, as you might be familiar, is that the price of things are escalating faster than that 5% cap can create, faster than that revenue can create. The actual labor costs, which comes to about 70% of the 70%, can you imagine, of the total expenses, the total operational costs of the art buses is 70% labor. And those figures, the labor costs have gone sky high in recent years, outpacing by a dramatic margin the actual 5% that they can earn from the hotel assessments. That is basically, the common inflationary situation that we're coming across, in all businesses. And it got to the point where they were actually, there was a revenue shortfall. It's been reported. They had reached a revenue shortfall of over $700,000 per month. They're losing $700,000 per month. And so it came to be that the board of directors for the art buses voted to wind down all operations, not just the Toy Story operations, but the entire business, winding it down and ending operations as of March 31st this year. On March or April 1st, there will be no buses taking guests from the Toy Story parking lot to Disneyland. Now, you may be asking at this point, certainly there's got to be some other thing, something that could have been done to save this system. Certainly, for example, the city of Anaheim, they actually thought about taking it over and saving the art buses. But after they reviewed the financials and saw that there was a $700,000 shortfall, they said, no, thank you. No, thank you. Disney, that's a possibility that people might be thinking of. Why can't Disney take over? We're actually going to get to that in a different way. We're going to get to that in the third part of this story. But just suffice it to say, the answer to that is no, Disney's not going to take over the art buses. The art buses are ending. Now, I would like to say,
now here's the thing, and this is where I get frustrated with Disney a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
This Eastern Gateway thing, was approved like 2 years ago.
It was.
If they would have started it when it got approved, that whole area could be open already. And you wouldn't, the need for this bus system wouldn't necessarily have to be there, because you would have the parking structure across Harbor, and they would just go across the Eastern Gateway, right? And you wouldn't even have to really even use the Toy Story lot, because you have that big parking structure now. It would at least mitigate this issue quite a bit. But because they drag their feet, now we're in a bind.
Well, we are in a bind, and that's something that irritates the hell out of me as well, because if you think about it, if the Eastern Gateway was built and open, and then obviously when we look at concept art for the original concept of the Eastern Gateway, it did have a bus load and unload area. It had an Uber pickup and drop off area. And then on top of that, it also looked like they had security gates in that area as well, so people can go through security and create the bubble. Because if that was the case, like you said, if they had it opened, they couldn't use the Toy Story parking lot literally as a staging area for DCA projects, meaning Avatar, Coco, stuff like that. They couldn't use that as a staging area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. If we had that Eastern Gateway and that parking structure built right now, this bus thing wouldn't really be that much of an issue, or it would be a lesser issue.
I'm sure.
But yeah, you're right, conductor. It's crazy. Now we're here. Now they're discontinuing the art buses. And now what do we do? Because we depend so heavily on the Toy Story lot. And the Toy Story lot, while it's close, it's not really feasible, like you were saying, for everyone to walk.
I think it's like a mile and a half.
Or a mile and a half. Okay.
But see, the problem is you have to cross two major intersections to get to Disneyland. That's the first problem. My second concern is, was this deal severed under Iger, or was it part of the new administration? Because now that Josh is coming in and officially taking over on the 18th, and the Art Buzz deal does not expire until the 31st of March, could Josh renegotiate a deal where we go for about 2 years until literally until the Eastern Gateway is built? Then at that point they can terminate the deal and temporarily relocate the bus drop off and load area to the Lilo and Stitch parking lot, which when you look at it, most of the time it's not really that full.
Right.
It really isn't. So could they do that? Because if
Yeah.
they did that, then at that point, at any point, they could actually close off that security area where the bus load and unload area is, and literally start preparations for Avatar a
Yeah.
lot quicker.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's got to be a way. There's got to be some way Disney can arrange something with the art buses. I know Dave was saying like, they're underwater. Like they're losing a lot of money every month. But there's got to be something Disney can do, or maybe Disney can look into other bus operators in the area that they can work a deal with or something. I mean, something is going to happen because you feasibly cannot have people walking a mile and a half. I mean, some people like you and I are young and healthy. We can do it all day long. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure.
But there's a lot of people that aren't young and healthy. There's a lot of people that can't walk. They're in scooters. It's hard to get around, and you can't ask that of them to make that trek. Yeah, so they're gonna have to do something.
Actually, at this point, that there is an idea, a theory that we're trying to control things too much, and it may seem like it's, this is going to be Armageddon. It's going to be an apocalyptic event for guests getting to and from the Toy Story parking lot, or from some of the further hotels out there on Harbor. There's an idea that if you just let things happen naturally and organically, we as a group of humans will figure it out. We'll just figure it out. We'll take the path of least resistance. We'll find alternatives, and it'll work itself out. And we shouldn't be bending over backwards trying to resuscitate, what is basically kind of a failed system. Public buses, well, I don't know if I say failed, but it's a system that doesn't really resonate, at least not here in Southern California, where people are very dependent on vehicles and driving. They love to drive their cars. Buses is kind of an antiquated, outdated service, some might say. I'm not sure if I feel that way or not. I kind of like public transportation myself, and I feel like it would be cool if we could sort of get back to that. But suffice it to say, there is an idea that maybe this is not an apocalyptic event. Maybe this will just take care of itself. We'll find another way. Actually, let's get into part of that. Let's find out what is going to be the impact. How is this going to affect guests? And we talked about first, obviously, Toy Story, but the art bus has served something like 8 million guests. That's considerably more per year. That is, that's considerably more than just what the Toy Story buses offer. So there's going to be impact all around, all those hotels on Harbor Boulevard and throughout, even further out, places that are completely disconnected from the hotel, even from Harbor Boulevard, hotels that are further out in Anaheim, over towards the Anaheim Stadium or something like that. All of those entities are going to be affected. And the question is, what will those guests do? What is going to be the next step on April 1st? What is that guest going to do who's not close enough to walk, who's not staying at the Tropicana? What is that guest going to do? Well, most likely, the easiest solution there is that people are going to opt for Uber or Lyft, and you're going to see a huge surge.
I agree with him. I mean, that's definitely an option. I thought about that too, but man, that's so unfair because you're putting that cost now on the back of the Disneyland Resort guest. This was a free service, these buses before, and now I got to pay, or you got to pay $7 or $8. I know it's not a whole lot of money, but it's a charge that we weren't having to pay before. Now we gotta take that on. I mean, can't the city? I mean, it's the city of Anaheim or like Orange County. Can't they find maybe like a fleet of like 4 or 5 buses that Disneyland can borrow that they can pay them to like service the back and forth. I mean, that, you know, it's crazy. The Uber thing, he's right. I thought about that too, but man, that would really suck because now we're paying for it. And I don't think that's really that. I don't think that's right. I really don't.
No,
But
100%. I don't personally like it myself because if you made an excellent point. These buses were free, and Disney had a contract. And my next question would be, is again, who made this decision? Was it Iger or was it the new administration? And if it was Iger, I wonder, and not to make this sound the wrong way, but I'm wondering if this is a first test for Josh to figure this out and work a deal with the city of Anaheim, because like David just said, it serves 8 million guests per year, not just for the Disneyland Resort. So if you want to really, be fair to Disney, let's cut that in half. 4 million guests a year. That's still quite a bit that's coming from the Toy Story parking lot. And if their only solution is, oh, you got to pay for an Uber or trek to walk, that is not a good option either way you
well,
look at it.
yeah, I mean the bus situation, the whole line, the whole art bus thing is going down. So it technically that part of it is not Disney. That's not their fault.
Oh, sure,
But yeah, but I mean their response to it though could be horrible. I mean, because even if it's an Uber thing,
sure.
that the capacity there is not the same as a bus. You can put a lot more people in a bus and really move people. I mean, if you have
Yes.
a bunch of people waiting around for Ubers, that's going to cause a lot of backup, you
Well,
know?
see, that's why I suggested that Disney buy some of those buses.
Yeah.
And they keep them maintained. They run them for about 2 years until the Eastern Gateway is done. And then after that, if they want to offload them, be my guest. But
Yeah.
for the meantime, you might have to suffer in the red a little bit, buy these buses, or at least a handful of them, and transport your guests, especially guests that are parking the Toy Story parking lot. Because again, I'm taking the word of Bricky when we had him on the live stream. They might not touch Toy Story for another 5 to 10 years. And if their solution is, oh well, Uber or walk for the next
No.
2.5 years, but while we wait for the Eastern Gateway, it's not good.
No, you can't do that. You cannot do that. They got to work with the city to get just a handful of buses to service this area. You have to. You have to. There's really no other option.
And the amount of people using those services, again, especially for those that are out, in the outlying areas, what that might mean in terms of, that traffic, that drop-off area on Harbor Boulevard it can barely sustain the amount of volume that's there now. It is a tiny little thing. It is very small. Every time I drop somebody off there or get dropped off, it's always chaotic and full of anxiety. They cannot sustain any more action there. They cannot sustain any more volume. Plus, now you're also going to see probably prices go up for those trips, for those Uber trips between the hotels and the Disneyland Resort. So expect something like that. That's going to happen on April 1st. Now, again, I'm going to sidebar here because we're riffing. As I understand it, there was a idea, a concept being floated of redeveloping that drop-off area on Harbor Boulevard as part of the program that's happening with Disneyland Forward, with the Eastern Gateway, and the redevelopment of that area out front. I don't think the concept art really shows it, but there's going to be a huge overhaul to that drop-off area because it's going to turn into Avatar. And it's going to create the Eastern Gateway is going to create the different traffic lanes, the bridge, and everything to getting into the park. It could be that they completely remove that Uber and Lyft drop-off area and make Uber drop off in the Eastern Gateway.
Yeah.
So it is going to be a problem in the outset, but in a couple of years, perhaps, it won't be an issue at all.
Yeah. No,
and
I agree with him on that. And I said that earlier, where it's like, I think once we get the Eastern Gateway and that new parking structure, I think this problem won't be really, kind of go away. Honestly. Yeah, you're right. But what do we do for 18 months to 2 years?
Exactly.
That's the problem.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Because again, you have millions of guests that park in the Toy Story parking lot. On top of that, you got big events happening this year and next with D23 and all that. And right now we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, we got to fix it. We got to do something. Again, you can't have guests walking across 2 major intersections a mile and a half just to enter your park, or expect them to pay high Uber prices on their dime to benefit you.
No, you're 1,000% correct on that, and I didn't even think about D23, and you're right about that as well. What are they gonna do? D23 is crazy, and then to not have that bus system would be, oh, what a mess. Well, and then the other thing too is, like, they're gonna start construction on the Eastern Gateway, so a lot of the stuff is gonna be behind walls, and that's gonna make more congestion and more chaos, so this whole thing is actually turning into a major, major problem for Disney right now.
Story here, as mentioned, probably the bigger story is Toy Story parking lot. Every single guest, well, maybe not every single one, because I'm certainly not one of those. 95% of the guests who park in the Toy Story parking lot take the Toy Story bus. It's called the Toy Story bus, but it's actually an art bus, and they take that bus to Disneyland. It's about a 10-minute drive. On April 1st, all of those guests, you can still park there, obviously, but all of those guests will not be able to take the bus. They're going to have to walk, I guess. They're going to have to walk. Now, I personally don't find it to be a very taxing walk, not at all. It's about a mile. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to walk that, depending on your pace and if you've got a huge group with you or not.
That's ridiculous.
So that's not excessive, I guess, although it is in terms of Disney. I don't think Disney wants their guests walking a mile to get to Disneyland. I really don't think they do.
Well, I agree with Dave. I mean, they definitely don't want that. Now, look, for a guy like you, for a guy like me, for a guy like Dave, we're all healthy. Like he was saying, he does it and no problem. And you and I can do it, really no problem. You know, very, very easily. But there are a lot of guests who could not make that trek. Older people, you know what I'm saying? People who have health conditions, people who are disabled, whatever it is. Disney cannot realistically ask that of all those people that park in that lot to walk that you just can't do it. So, wow, man.
I mean, there are situations, there are long walks, especially like at Walt Disney World. The walk from, let's say, the bus drop off to Epcot is probably a half a mile to the gate. I would guess it's a fair distance. Hollywood Studios, boy, when you take the Skyliner, that's a good half a mile also, I think, but still not a mile. It's not as long as the walk is. You got to go on city streets. Harbor Boulevard is a heavily trafficked street. There are, let's see, there's two intersections really, but that Harbor and Catella is, I don't think they want, I don't think Disney wants, I don't even know how many thousands of guests every day going back and forth at all times of day and night, walking through Harbor and Catella on a daily basis. So that's going to be an issue that they're going to want to answer ASAP. That's a huge, huge problem. And the fact that the timeline is so narrow, what are we talking about? 2 months? Yeah, 2 months to go. They have to have some kind of solution here in 2 months, which is, I mean, that's asking a lot. But that actually brings us to our third question. And this is kind of a broad one, but what is Disney's part in this? And what are they going to do about it?
Okay. Now, real quick, before Dave starts, this is one of the things that Disney, one of the things that the residents, the businesses, and the city of Anaheim were really concerned about with the Disneyland Forward project was congestion in the area. So I would imagine this plays into that, where it's like, this is going to cause a massive amount, like Dave was saying, a massive amount of people walking down Harbor Boulevard and what have you. This is going to cause all kinds of issues, a massive amount of congestion here. I'm guessing, and this is just my prediction, I think the city of Anaheim is going to have to step in and provide Disney buses. And Disney can pay for those, and that's fine. But I think it's in the best interest of Disney to have that done, and it's in the best interest of the city of Anaheim. You cannot let people just that many people walking down the sidewalks for a couple blocks. It doesn't work.
Well, see, that's what I mean. You could reach a contract with the city of Anaheim. The Anaheim city buys the art buses. They maintain them and all that. Disney pays the lease amount. And again, it's a short-term contract until the Eastern Gateway is built. And then after that, whatever the city wants to do with the buses at that point, be my guest. But in the meantime, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Now, here's another option too. You can do it almost like a hybrid, right? You can let's say Disney can't secure the same amount of buses that they currently have, right? And let's say the city of Anaheim can only give them maybe 2 buses or something like that. I don't know. Just throwing a number out there. What Disney could potentially do, if you do want to do like a van, like an Uber van service or whatever, the only way I see that working, if you put that in conjunction with maybe like a few buses as well, and Disney pays for those Ubers, that Uber service back and forth. I know when I go to get my car serviced, like at the dealership or something like that, they will provide me an Uber, and the dealership pays for that Uber. So maybe Disney can like work a deal out with like Uber, where the Uber drivers that are servicing the back and forth, they get paid, obviously they should, but they're getting, but Disney works out a contract with these Uber drivers or Uber in general, where they're getting paid by Disney though. Like you as a guest don't have to pay for that Uber. They have like a bunch of Uber vans or whatever they have, and guests can get in there and they go back and forth alongside maybe like 2 or 3 buses. I could see something like that happening. So I don't know. We'll kind of see. It's interesting.
Disney's part, we should mention again, art is not run by Disney. The Toy Story buses are not Disney buses. They are art buses, and Disney contracts with the art buses to provide that service. They don't own it. Well, nobody really does. It's a nonprofit, and they don't run it. But they are on, and this makes perfect sense, there is a representative from Disney on the board of directors. A Disney representative was on the vote. They voted to end the art system, which goes to show you just how bad things are with the art system in terms of the revenue shortfalls. It goes to show you that as much as Disney needs that service, they agreed, their representative agreed, this is not good business. The Toy Story buses are not a profitable, even break-even business. It's a negative ROI. But that also suggests, knowing that Disney has somebody on the board and Disney was there making that vote, that this is not a surprise. Disney has come out and said, I think they had a statement. Disney said that they're actively exploring next steps, which, I mean, is obviously, PR speak for, yeah, of course. We knew this was going to happen. We knew it was happening. We've known for months. We've known for a year, maybe. They probably had this revenue shortfall for a very long time. And, it's not something that just suddenly happened. This inflationary process has been around for a couple of years now, right? So this is not, they've been deeply involved and deeply embedded in this entire operation or in this entire process. So Disney is well aware. So this is not coming as a surprise to the Disney company. My belief is that with that April 1st date, I think Disney already has a solution. Now, whether that's a permanent situation or a temporary one, they've probably got, at the very minimum, they're going to have another third party bus operation come in and provide services while Disney figures things out. Long term, though, we have a couple issues that play into what Disney's long-term plans are. For a decade or more, Disney's been on sort of a full court press trying to turn Disneyland into Walt Disney World. We've been seeing this operationally inside the parks, and we're seeing it operationally outside the parks. Disney has been fully invested in trying to turn the Disneyland Resort into a proper long-term resort destination, not just a place you visit for a day or two, but a place you visit for a week or more, like you do at Walt Disney World. And part of that is beefing up the infrastructure around the Disneyland Resort. Everything that's, you notice when you go to Walt Disney World, you don't even think. It's just second nature how they're getting guests. These are very spread out parks, but it's so easy to bus or the Skyliner or the monorail or something. It's very well managed, very well run.
Yeah, I think the long term, I think we're going to be fine because I know Anaheim wants to do that gondola system to connect Disneyland Resort to the OC Vibe to the Angel Stadium and all that stuff. We'll have that. We're going to have the Eastern Gateway and that brand new parking structure. That's going to be a beast, a massive structure. The city, along in coordination, in conjunction with Disney, they're working on long term. So I think long term, I think Disneyland Resort will be better off than they are now. Yeah. It's that short term though. It's that 18-month from now until they get that parking structure built and all that, and the gondola system and all that good stuff. I think it's from now until then is where there's going to be a ton of growing pains. Dave is probably right though. I mean, they probably have some sort of plan. I mean, I would hope they do, because it's not something. Here's the thing: they have to have a plan. Like there really isn't feasibly you have to have something. You can't have these people walk. So there's got to be some sort of plan. And I think there's also a sense of urgency with this, not just on Disney's side, but the city of Anaheim is going to want this, rectified. They're going to want to get this fixed, obviously. So I think there's enough urgency on all sides to make it happen. But I don't know. It's just crazy though.
And the buses, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, those are Disney-owned buses. And so I believe that there's a possibility that Disney would eventually create their own transportation system, their own bus system. Maybe they even buy these buses. Maybe even they buy the art buses, reskin them to be Disney buses, and they turn around and do it on their own. Whether or not that includes the Hilton, right, or the Marriott, or any of those other hotels down Harbor Boulevard is up for debate. But at the very minimum, they would be looking to control the Toy Story buses. That's a possibility. Now, also, when you think about this in terms of the Disneyland Forward proposal and that whole program, Disney committed, I think, $45 million to improving. That was part of their approval process for Disneyland Forward, was committing $45 million to improving traffic and guest transportation in the Disneyland Resort area. Right. I have to think that was already part of the consideration. The art buses, et cetera, was part of that $45 million. I have to think that those two things are interconnected. We know also that they're building the Eastern Gateway. Now they haven't even broken ground on that. And that's probably going to take about 2 years. So they definitely need a short-term fix for this. But there will be a point when the Eastern Gateway solves all these problems. And matter of fact, but after they're done building the Eastern Gateway, the Toy Story lot will probably not even be a thing anymore. The Toy Story lot is destined to become resort property. The Toy Story lot is destined to become something that isn't a parking lot. And what that timeline is up for debate. But I mean, it's a minimum 5 or 6 years from now. Well, I should say the Toy Story lot will be closed at least probably in 2 years. That's my guess. I'm guessing the Toy Story lot will be closed completely in about 2 years, or for however long it takes them to build the Eastern Gateway. That's the new parking structure they're putting up over there that we've been sort of tracking in our construction updates on our main channel. That Eastern Gateway is going to solve all these problems with the Toy Story bus, including the situation I mentioned earlier with regard to Uber and Lyft. They'll probably move Uber and Lyft over into that Eastern Gateway as well. And then the guests who are dropped off will have to walk over that bridge and go through the proper entrance. Long-term picture, though. That leaves only that short-term situation that could be, as I mentioned, that they just contract with another third. But I don't know what other bus services they have, in the Anaheim area. I don't know. That's interesting. I only ever see the art buses. I only ever see art buses running around Anaheim. But all that considered, I have to believe that Disney's position.
So there is one other bus company Again, I think they have a contract with the county and the city, but it's the OCTA, the Orange County
Yes.
Transit Authority. So it's either they go the route of buying the art buses, reskinning them like David was mentioning, or they reach a new agreement with the OCTA.
Yes, I think that's the route they're gonna go, something along those lines. Signing a deal with another party. Um, yeah, they have to, and like Dave was saying too, and like we've been saying all along. I mean, it's just for temporary. You
Well,
know, I mean, once they build that Eastern Gateway, a lot of this stuff kind of solves itself. Go ahead, conductor.
well, see, this spirals off to another problem. This spirals off to the Uber Lyft problem, where those OCTA buses, depending on what agreement they reach, when you ride those buses, you do have to pay a fee to ride them. So unless the agreement is if you're, going to Disney, you don't get charged, people are still going to get charged to ride those buses to go to Disneyland. So
Yeah, I think when it comes to those, yeah, Disney would pay that company to service their guests. So I think we'll be okay with that.
but see, it's kinda technical though, if you think about it, because how is the bus driver seriously, how is the bus driver gonna know if you're going to Disneyland or you're going to the business right across from Disneyland, and you just tell the bus driver, "Hey, I'm going to Disneyland," so you don't get charged, but you're actually not going to Disneyland, you're going to a business across the way.
I think the only solution for that, and I don't know how much strain this would put on that company, but I think the only solution to that is the buses that Disney gets from them
Sure.
will have to be dedicated for only Disneyland Resort. They can't be making other trips because then you get into the messiness, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
So if they give Disneyland Resort like 4 or 5 buses, this was it OCTA is called?
Yeah.
Okay, if OCTA gives Disney like 4 or 5 buses, those 4 or 5 buses have to act like the art buses. They have to be dedicated Disneyland Resort buses. Yeah, they can't be going all over the place, and because that would create a huge problem because then you would have people in there going to other locations and what have you. So they would have to be dedicated. But the problem with that though is that now you're putting a strain on OCTA services because now they're having to pull away from their fleet to service Disneyland. Because remember, whatever buses they give Disneyland were buses that were out there in Orange County doing their thing.
Yep.
So now it puts a strain on that company. So it's crazy.
Position is let's just go ahead and end this thing and start working towards our next phase, our next evolutionary step with regard to public transportation, knowing that they're on their way to the Eastern Gateway, knowing they're on their way to Disneyland Forward type stuff, and that the Toy Story lifespan was just another 2 years or so anyway. So let's just go ahead and end this process. And then, like I said, in the meantime, we'll fill it in with those third-party operations. Now, by the way, all of that answers only the effect on those guests at the Toy Story lot, or those who are being dropped off at the Eastern Gateway. The guests at the Marriott and the Hilton and the Anaheim Hotel, or anybody else. Well, I guess the Anaheim Hotel doesn't probably get guests, but all those other locations that are using the ART system are probably still going to be on their own. They're probably going to still be on their own, and they're probably going to have to go for Uber and Lyft. They will not be using an ART bus. I don't know. I can't imagine.
And that's fine. I mean, not that it's fine. I mean, I sympathize with those people, but Disney's not responsible for the people staying at the Hilton. That's not a Disney hotel. So I get it. I mean, I feel for you. If you stay at that hotel, I feel for you. It sucks. It's an inconvenience, but that's not Disney's problem to solve. You know what I'm saying? So, like a lot of times, we stay at the Anaheim main gate right there on Disney Way. We've done that a lot of times, and we walk it. We don't have a bus that picks us up there and takes us back to Disneyland. Like I think if you're staying off property like that at a hotel, the transportation is kind of the onus is on the customer, on the guest at that point. But if you park in Disney's parking lot, that's on Disney.
Yep.
Yeah, that's on Disney.
With the city of Anaheim, are those hotels each going to have to come up with their own method, their own solution that is, separate from Uber and Lyft, the way Candy Cane does? I don't know if you've ever seen the Candy Cane bus. They have their own bus.
Yeah.
The Candy Cane Inn delivers guests on their own. I don't imagine that every single hotel is going to buy their own bus. But man, that's actually probably the most fascinating part of this is what are those hotels going to do for the next couple of years? How will that impact Uber and Lyft drop off I don't know if there being any short-term plan for expanding the Uber Lyft drop-off area, which, as I mentioned, is just woefully inadequate for the storm that's coming. They're not ready.
Nope.
That drop-off area is simply not ready. Again, that's such an
yeah, because it's a perfect store, like, because you're gonna have all that construction over there.
Yeah.
I mean, in the short term, you're gonna have all that construction over there because all that whole Uber Lyft area, the area where the buses load, unload, all that stuff is gonna be a construction site. I mean, that's all part of the Eastern Gateway. So I don't know, man. It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be 2 years of just it being a mess.
Apocalyptic idea in my mind that I have to believe that there's already a plan. I just can't imagine just the sheer mayhem that would result if there wasn't a plan, if everybody was relying on Uber and Lyft. Unless, I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't even think about it. We're going to stay tuned for this because the whole thing is just going to, reveal itself on April 1st. I'm tempted to get out there with a camera on Harbor Boulevard and just watch traffic on April 1st and see how that goes. God. That's going to be a real doozy.
I hope he does.
Assuming that is, I'm trying to make sure I have that right, that the date that it's closing. Let me just check my notes here.
David,
March 31st. Yeah.
With the camera.
March 31st. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, this is crazy stuff, Conductor. But we'll keep an eye on it too. And big shout out. We have two Dave videos today. We're doing a double whammy of Dave Fresh Baked. This particular video is actually his secondary channel, so it's Fresh Baked Presents. So I want everybody, because a lot of people, everyone loves Fresh Baked, and everyone subscribed to Fresh Baked. But are you subscribed to the Fresh Baked Presents channel? I know a lot of you aren't, so make sure you do that. So I'll be linking Fresh Baked Presents in the description down below. So make sure you subscribe and show Dave all the love. Like I said here, every time we react to Dave, this guy is a great dude. We love Dave. He's always been great to us, whether it be in the parks, whatever. He's always a gentleman. So, and this guy is Mr. Disneyland. He's at the parks doing all these construction updates all the time. So hats off to Dave. But before we move on to the video about Josh D'Amaro, any final thoughts on this, Conductor?
Final thoughts is, I don't know. I might have to be on Harbor Boulevard with David, watching him film people walk.
Hey, man.
That's just crazy.
Boots on the ground. Conductor and OG and Dave from Fresh Baked will all be there, just watching,
Wouldn't that be something?
Hey, bring your car. We'll help them. We'll help them take people back and forth. Hey, hop in. We'll take you. Now this is another video from Dave's secondary channel, Fresh Baked Presents. Why Josh D'Amaro? And is this good news? Now, Conductor, the big news dropped the other day. You and I have not been able to talk about this yet on camera, at least. But let's go ahead and listen to what Dave has to say. Same deal. We'll play, pause, talk about it. Let's go.
To the Walt Disney Company, Josh D'Amaro has been named the new Chief Executive Officer. On March 18th, he's going to replace Bob Iger, and he is going to be in charge of everything Disney. Big news, of course, but how do we know that this is good news? How much do we know about Josh D'Amaro and his history? We know Josh as being a very handsome, presentable face, and the executive who likes to wear white sneakers with his suits. I believe there are three key questions that we need to answer to determine if the
look, Josh D'Amaro is a style king, right? No one does the quarter zip and skinny jeans and the white tennis shoes like Josh D'Amaro.
Hey, to be honest though, You're a second runner up, dude. I've seen you with
Oh.
the jeans, the white sneakers, the leather jackets. So I've seen it. You're a runner up.
I'm runner up, man. Maybe one day I'll be Disney CEO after Josh.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, that seems to be the outfit, right? You gotta wear that kind of stuff in order if you're gonna be Disney CEO. So
hiring of Josh tomorrow is something we should be excited about. The first, naturally, is kind of a simple question, but it's important coming from the Disney perspective. Why choose Josh tomorrow? Second, what does this mean for Disney guests, for Disney Parks guests? Never mind all the other parts of running the Disney company. I'm talking about you and me. How should we feel about this? What's going to happen with us? And then finally, what does Wall Street, what do industry insiders think of Josh tomorrow as the potential chief executive officer? Well, not potential anymore. He is the chief executive officer. What do they think? Well, let's start with that first question. Why Josh tomorrow? And to answer that, we have to first know who Josh tomorrow is. He's been with the company now for 26 years, serving in a wide range of roles, but all of them, which is something we'll get to later, it's an important factor. All of them are parks specific, or nearly all of them. He's a parks guy, but along with that, he's also worked alongside closely with Bob Iger since Iger's return, but even before that as well. Iger's the one who named him the president of Disney Parks and Experiences. So him and Bob Iger have been sort of growing together for the past more than 5 years, past 10 years or so. And that's an important factor because almost as soon as Iger was hired, the question was not, well, Bob, what are you going to do with the company for the next 10 years? No, the question was, Bob, who's going to replace you? Because he knew Iger's coming back was merely to stop the bleeding created by the Chapek area. And almost that entire time that he spent here as the returning CEO was to figure out how to go past this, how to move on from Chapek and how to move on from Iger. So him and Tomorrow have been working very closely in that entire time. So it was obvious that he was considered more, the protege, I guess, of Iger's. And that, again, that's going to play a key factor in the decision. Now, something that Tomorrow has that Iger didn't have, and I think this is apparent to everybody, which is why he was the leading candidate, is that, and why he was chosen, I believe. And I think this might be actually the reason why he was chosen. It's because he's a great face. Josh Tomorrow is great face. And I don't just mean being, handsome and, photographing well, but he represents the company very well. He is handsome. He does.
Yeah, no, he's right about that. I think that's a huge factor. Here's the thing. A lot of people underestimate like social intelligence, I guess you can call it, where being able to talk to people and being able to navigate social waters, right? Is massive in really just about anything you do. And especially in business. 1,000%. So the fact that Josh knows how to navigate the social, the people interaction element of this whole game puts him way ahead of most people. You know what I'm saying? So he knows how to smooth with guests, right? We've seen it. A lot of our friends have met Josh Giamaro. Everyone that has ever met him said he's an amazing dude. That interaction was very positive. But it doesn't stop there, because Josh is also smoozing with other executives from like Disney, or other executives from other companies, like the guys over at Universal. I'm sure he's constantly talking to them. But that helps him in this business world because he's able to network. That likability the likability thing isn't this vain, superficial thing that a lot of people feel that it is. It's actually quite essential in business. The reason why Chapek failed wasn't necessarily even the decisions he was making. The reasons why Chapek failed was because he didn't know how to handle relationships. All that crap with ScarJo and all that stuff. That was Chapek not knowing how to navigate the social waters. He was an absolute mess. The Reedy Creek stuff, all of that's he doesn't have that. You know what I'm saying? And so it hurts you in business. Josh has that. And it's very important in business. It's probably even more important with Disney. Disney is expected to have CEOs that have that front facing kind of thing where it's like that Uncle Walt, the Michael Eisners, right? People kind of expect the Disney CEO to be more than just a Excel spreadsheet guy. So, but what say you on that? Is that one of the reasons why you thought he was chosen conductor?
So, actually, you know what? It's interesting because I 100% agree with what you said. I'm going to add actually on to that because when you think about it, we've been talking about it. The studio side of the Walt Disney Company has suffered.
Yeah.
There's no questions, ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's been suffering for years. And when Bob Iger came back, it wasn't for him to make decisions about projects and whatnot, even though he announced Avatar for DCA during an earnings call or a shareholders meeting. I can't remember what it was, but his role was to, like David said, stop the bleeding, do damage control, and at the same time to find his successor. And what's interesting about what you were mentioning about DeMarlo being, someone that likes to be in front of the cameras, looks good walking around the parks, interacts with guests, interacts with different execs from different companies. Because I actually, it's funny you mentioned it because I just saw it I think it was either today or the other day, where they actually showed a picture of Demaro and one of the executives from Epic Universe, and they were walking around Epic Universe together. So,
Yeah.
in all reality, and then you've seen it time and time again over the last year and a quarter, where anytime Iger was at a Disney park, whether it was Disneyland, DCA, or Walt Disney World, Damaro was right by his side, and that was a dead giveaway. And
Yeah.
my whole thing is, when it comes to the Walt Disney Company right now, as we sit, the bread and butter of the company is literally the parks, cruise line, experiences. That's what's holding the company together right now. The
Yeah.
studios is not doing anything beneficial for the company. That's why Dana Walden got the position she did. The only thing I disagree with what everyone's saying about that position is I don't know why James Gorman did a interview which I had on my live stream earlier today with Hollow Gelato from Bloomberg and James Gorman, and then you had David Muir from World News Tonight when he did his segment interviewing Iger and Demaro. Was they said that Dana Wallace's position, the CCO of the company, basically the president of the Walt Disney Company, that is not a new position as far as I know. That position was terminated from Chapek when he came in the power, and they just brought it back. But her role specifically is going to be overseeing the studio side because we all know with Hollywood nowadays, between, and I don't want to dive deep into it, but between the politics that shouldn't happen and the fact that Hollywood's kind of like 50-50 with blockbuster hits or just complete misses, and then you have AI thrown into the mix.
Right.
This is as close as we're going to get to the dual CEO position that we thought was going to happen, that originally the Walt Disney Company started with
Yeah.
Walt and Roy.
Yeah.
So, again, I think by tomorrow becoming the CEO, taking the reins, I think what's going to wind up happening is he's going to focus again more on the studio side, or not the studio side, I'm sorry, the park side, the cruise line side, the entertainment side, and Dana Walden's going to handle the studio side because we said weeks, and I mean weeks, where we've been on each other's channels or other people's channels, and we've all said Demaro does not have that intelligence to run the media side. So we're like, okay, how's this going to happen? The only way it's going to happen is if Dana Walden is part of it and the
Right.
board and Iger offer her such a sweet deal, it's hard to resist. And what I find interesting about that is also that kind of came out, I think yesterday or the day before, was that Dana Walden for right now only has a 4-year contract. So that
Right.
means in 2030, they have to reevaluate if what she's done in the last 4 years is worth extending her contract compared to Tomorrow, who's already set in stone. So I found that very interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, the one concern I've had about Tomorrow the whole time was his lack of studio experience. You know, Disney is a studio. I mean, I know that's heavily debated right now, like in the fan community and stuff, but I stand by that. I will die on that hill. Disney is a studio first, more than
Yeah.
anything. And the reason why I say that is because yes, the theme park business is big. Yes, the theme park business makes a lot of money, but the theme park business doesn't have anything to build if you don't have the IP from the studio. Because I mean, and look, here's the thing: as big as the theme park industry or the theme park division is right now at Disney, never in Disney's history have they depended more on the studio than right now. And what I mean by that is, in the '70s, they used to build rides with original storylines like Big Thunder, Space Mountain. They don't make that kind of stuff anymore. Everything Parks does is IP based. They completely depend on the studio for all the material. So you need the studio person in there, and Josh has no experience in that, right? And Dana has a lot of it. So I think they made the right decision because now she's not co-CEO like you were saying, conductor, but she's president. So she's only number two to Josh. That's a perfect. I think that was a perfect kind of dynamic right there, and it was
I think
needed.
so.
Yeah, because look, too, we have AI, we have streaming, we have Netflix now, probably going to get Warner Brothers. There's so much change happening in the industry. You can't have Josh, this theme park guy, walk in there and pretend like he knows what he's doing. He needed Dana.
Well, exactly my point. And you make an excellent point, even with the AI aspect, because when you watch that video from World News Tonight from last night's broadcast, when the AI stuff came up and you kind of were watching it, Tomorrow was looking at Iger multiple times during that interview, especially when the AI stuff came up. So I'm not even sure he fully 100% understands it. Really, really nobody kind of 100% understands it. Other people have different expertise in it. I will give people credit for that. So what I think is going to happen is either they're going to add more board members, or some board members might leave, and then new board members are going to come in, but the new board members that are going to come in are going to be, in the profession of AI. So that'll help the Walt Disney Company and Josh, kind of, work with the AI, not just on the studio side, not just in the parks, but everything, since they invested in it.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. Yeah, I think that they yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And one thing too that bothered me with that interview, and I said this on the live show I just did earlier with Jared and Slimer, aka Theme Park Philosophy. We talked about this. Why does Iger always have to be sitting next to the next CEO? I remember that him and Chapek did an interview together when Chapek was announced as the CEO, right? Now Josh is announced, and now Bob is there with him, being interviewed. It should have been Josh and Dana being interviewed. I don't know why it's Bob. Bob Iger is the past at this point. I think he
He
did
is.
a lot. He's the past, right? He did a lot of great stuff, but we're looking forward, and it feels like it's almost like he's playing like daddy, like, oh yeah, I'm gotta watch over my son Josh to kind of like make sure he's okay in the interview. It's not good optics. I don't know why Iger needed to insert himself in that interview. I thought that was kind of weird. Let Josh be Josh and let Josh stand on his own. If there was going to be anyone else in that equation, it should have been Dana Walden. So that
Yes.
was very, very strange to me. And I didn't really like that. I think that was disrespectful to Chapek. And I feel it's disrespectful to Josh D'Amaro. Let these men and even Dana Walden, women, let them do their thing as their own person. And I don't think it's right for Bob Iger to be kind of sitting there, like you were saying, like, you know, it was kind of a weird.
It was weird.
Yeah, there was weird tension sometimes, almost, right? It's just strange.
And you kind of you could kind of tell real quick. I'm sorry. You could
No,
kind of tell that, you know, when DeMauro was looking at Iger multiple times during that interview, you kind of almost felt the intensity through the television screen, or if you're watching on YouTube, you kind of felt the intensity, like Josh was like looking for cue signs from Iger, and he didn't want to say the wrong thing.
Yes, excellent observation, conductor, and that's exactly the same vibe. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I've seen clips and what have you. I felt that in a lot of the clips that I've seen, where it's like it was almost like Josh felt like he had to
Get permission.
Yeah, or like, you know, don't say anything that'll upset Bob, you know, and that's not the spot you want to be in. You're the CEO, Josh. No, well, he will be next month. You're the CEO. Okay, you're the new sheriff in town. Like, I don't know. I didn't like the way they handled that. I think Bob needs to kind of back off a little bit. He did the same thing with Bob Chapek.
Look good in a suit. He does look, you know, everything. The haircut, even the suit with the white sneakers. Which again, I think we're going to get to that in a minute. But he gives great face, and Disney really needs great face, in my opinion. They didn't get that. I mean, Iger was good, but Iger was very polished. Iger was almost presidential. And as a matter of fact, there was a point back in the day when he retired, that he retired because he wanted to make a run for the presidency. Can you imagine?
Oh God.
Can you imagine? I don't know what happened with that. I'm reflecting on that, but there was talk. There was talk of him making a presidential run. I just cannot even. That's so far away from reality today. But that was, you know, that he was that kind of on the scale, on the spectrum of personality. He was more presidential than TV. Chapek was terrible face. Chapek was absolutely terrible. And this, I believe that's the reason why he got fired. I actually think they liked some of the ideas that he came up with. I actually think that Disney was like, yeah, man, that sounds great. No. Do those things that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, Dave is right. Chapek's ideas really weren't the problem. If you look at a lot of the stuff that happened after Chapek left, they've kept a lot of Chapek's ideas. His ideas were never the problem. He doesn't know how to navigate the social waters, and that is so important. It's vital in business. It's vital in Hollywood, and it's like even content creation. Like, look at all the collaborations you and I have with other creators in our space, in our community, our friends, everybody. That's all part of that, like being able to talk to people, having that social intelligence and knowing how to handle certain situations and all that. That's part of being a content creator. And the content creators that don't have that typically don't do as well, right? The ones that don't know how to navigate the social end of things. It's the same thing for business, man. And Chapek, his ideas, like Dave was saying, they weren't terrible, but man, the way he was awkward. He constantly put his foot in his mouth. I mean, all the Reedy Creek stuff, a lot of that was social stuff that he was bumbling. That whole thing, that was an expensive mistake. You know, I mean, there's countless things. ScarJo, all of it.
Yeah, that and the relationship he had with Imagineering. He destroyed that relationship and literally forced Imagineering to its knees, and that crippled a lot of things.
100%, conductor.
The surgical precision with prices and all that, the variable tiered pricing situation. I think they were into it because it helped him create more revenue. But the problem is that he sounded like such an asshole, pardon me, when he said all of it. He did not give you the sense that he was thinking about you. He gave you the sense that he was thinking only of himself. He was absolutely a terrible face for the company. Now, I would think that DeMauro would even be probably the best face that I could think of, maybe even better than Eisner. Eisner was great face, though. He was really good. He was good in the camera. He projected a sense of enthusiasm.
Yeah, Eisner was fantastic. Eisner, you can tell Michael Eisner loved this stuff. Like he got up there with his Kermit the Frog tie, right? Like, is it, or, I mean, this guy, he was rocking all the Disney gear. He'd wear the hat, the whole thing, Mickey Mouse hats, right? Michael Eisner I say loved, but he loves this company, right? I will say this. I agree with Dave. I think Josh tomorrow has great face card, never gets declined, ever. But I think Tom Staggs, though, is pretty good too. Tom Staggs, not as handsome as tomorrow, but he decent looking. But Tom Staggs had a good presence about him, kind of like a Michael Eisner. I think Tom Staggs would have been fantastic as well. Now Disney fumbled that one, and he ended up leaving the company and starting his own company with Kevin Meyer, who is another Disney alumni. but yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
And belief and optimism for the company, which was resonated greatly with guests and with fans of the company. How you feel about his decisions, his operational decisions, and what he brought to the company in terms of choices. That's another conversation. But there was a stretch there where Eisner could do no wrong. He was amazing. But above all that, he was great face in front of the camera. So I think that's a key decision, that Disney wants somebody that's going to bring the company forward into the modern era. And that whole...
Yeah, no, 100%. And here's the thing too. Disney and our good friend Jay Shear, we love Jay Shear. Jay Shear had talked about how bad the Disney PR has been lately. And Jay is absolutely correct in that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When you have a CEO who knows how to talk and knows how to smooth, it puts less pressure on your PR team, because Josh doesn't really make a lot of PR mistakes. So you don't have to have someone following behind him and trying to clean up a mess, or trying to control the narrative, because Josh can control his own narrative and he can handle that really, really well. I mean, that poor Christina Shockey, the PR woman, when Chapek was in there, I mean, she was busy. Okay. She was a busy woman, Bob Iger isn't as bad, but he has been pretty bad since he came back. I will say that much. But Josh D'Amaro is like plug and play, baby. Like he gets it. He understands it. He's suave, and he's got the personality for days. The PR people aren't going to have to put that much work in with Josh, because Josh knows how to handle himself already.
White sneakers with the suits thing. I don't know how much of that is authentic. I'm hoping it is, but it's something he does all the time. But apart from that, he's also somebody who's known. He's the only executive that I can think of that would walk the parks. Like even as president of Disney Park, or of all the parks and of all the experiences, he would still go to Disneyland and walk the parks. You could take a selfie with him. He's known as that. He's known as the president who will take a selfie with you. I'm sure if you asked Iger, he probably would. But he didn't. It didn't feel like he was seeking it out. Whereas D'Amaro would just walk around in the parks.
Yeah, both men. Honestly, I think Iger would be fun to have a beer with or something. But the thing with Iger, I feel like Iger hangs out with his own tax bracket a lot more. Like he feels like very, like if you were a fellow millionaire, I think he'd hang out with you, and he would feel very comfortable in that environment, right? Like I think Iger feels very comfortable at like Oscar parties and things like that, right?
Sure.
Around a lot of money, right? Where Josh, who's probably just as rich or close to it, he's a rich guy too, for sure. But Josh feels a little bit more down to earth. Josh feels like the guy who could kick it with like the blue collar guys. And kinda, you know what I'm saying? He's a lot more of a people person in that respect. Now, Bob Iger doesn't have a bad personality, but it just feels like he's more in that like that wealthy kind of bubble,
Well, if I can interpret it, almost sounds like, Iger, kind of hangs around, like you said, his tax bracket, his wealth, and kind of, D'Amaro's like, screw that. I'm going to go to Disneyland today. I'm just going to go hang out on Main Street, walk everywhere. People want to get a picture. Yeah, let's do it. You know who actually reminds me of that? Kevin Feige.
Oh, 100%.
is like that. And it's interesting because nowadays, you want people in charge like that, because when you have, just like David said, when you have a president like that, not worried about anything in the world, kind of, doing what Walt did when Disneyland first opened, and you have Tomorrow walking around, talking to the guests, taking pictures, getting his face out there in the public forum and not behind a wall of security guards. Um, it kind of tells people, hey, you know what? This guy is awesome. This guy can relate. This guy is going to lead the company into a better position than what it is right now. Because I do agree with you. When Iger came back, his focus was not, to be honest with you, it was not to sit there and go walk the Disney park. And even when he was there, he really didn't feel like, I kind of felt, he didn't really relate to guests too much. It was more like kind of showing Josh the ropes and,
Yeah.
and kind of seeing what's going on. And doing a lot of damage control at Disney. And I don't blame him for doing that, because that's what the board has admitted. That's what he's admitted, because there was a lot of cleanup with Chapek, leaving a lot of wreckage behind. But at the same time, if you're going to be the CEO of the company and you're going to be walking around in the public space and you can't even relate to people, that's again, I agree with you. That's kind of Iger's downfall for the last 3 years. But I get it. His focus was not, hanging out with people at Disneyland. His focus was damage control, training Josh as his protege. That was his goal.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Is in jeans and shoes and whatever, and just kind of take it in. So that's something that I think they want to bring, that kind of energy, that kind of personality into this modern area that is very, social media and digital and everything like that. He brings that quality to the number one job in the Disney company. And that's definitely on the front of their thought process. And in that way, you can see how it was quite a natural for this choice to be made, because what Disney's trying to do isn't just a corporate shift. Really, and it isn't really, because I feel like he's going to follow in Iger's footsteps in a lot of ways. It's not a corporate shift that they're going after. It's a cultural shift. It's a change in how we perceive the Disney company. And above all else, that's why I believe they chose Josh Tomorrow over Dana Walden, who by her own rights is an amazing executive.
Absolutely.
Everything I hear about her is terrific, and she's going to be great. And she's going to be included in this process as we talk about that further. But I don't think she would carry the same cachet in front of the camera, photographs, in interviews, etc. It's a completely different resonance. Again, disrespect to her or anything of that nature. Josh is just better at it than she is. So that's the why they chose Josh Tomorrow. Let's talk about what that means now to Disney parks guests here, Florida, worldwide, irrespective of what his role is going to be with the rest of the company. And there's lots more to the Disney company than theme parks, obviously. And we can sort of answer that first by observing his history, which is, again, almost strictly speaking, parks. He was president of Disneyland between, February of 2018 and November of 2019. A small stretch, but that's not because they didn't want him to be the president, but he was showing so much upward mobility, showing so much talent and ability that they couldn't keep him. They couldn't contain him with just Disney parks or just Disneyland. He quickly moved over to Walt Disney World, and then eventually he became, as we mentioned, president of Disney Parks Worldwide and of all Disney experiences. That includes things like, I believe, Alani and the cruises and all that stuff. While he was president, though, of Disneyland, there's a few observations. He presided over the opening of Galaxy's Edge. So that would have been 2018, right? But I don't believe that he was necessarily the architect of that. I wouldn't give him credit for that. They've got other Imagineers, and probably more of an Iger thing than it was a Tomorrow thing. I would say that you can give him credit for Project Stardust. Do you guys remember that? Project Stardust, that was the program that they were doing leading up to the opening of Galaxy's Edge, that in preparation to make the park more physically convenient for guests to attend. A lot of curb shortening. They lowered a lot of curbs, widened some streets, that kind of thing, to improve traffic and congestion, make the park ready for the perceived influx of new guests coming to Galaxy's Edge. That's a whole nother conversation that we can get into. But there was Project Stardust. Max Pass was something that happened before him, but he was running the company at the time that Max Pass was a thing, but he didn't develop it. That was done under, I think, Cole Glacier. Is that how you pronounce his name? So he was kind of there for Max Pass. He was also kind of there for the upgrade of Paradise Pier to Pixar Pier. Now that went over okay. The Paradise, and again, that was actually, he presided over that. That was on his watch, but I don't think he was there for the development and the decision-making process of what that was going to be. I believe that again was Cole Glacier. But that was sort of on his watch. Pixar Pier, I look back on that. When I first saw it, I wasn't that impressed because at the time I was not happy with the entire boardwalk or Coney Island aspect of that design. Over the years, I've actually grown more fond of that, and I do think now that Pixar Pier is definitely an upgrade over Paradise Pier. But anyway, just throwing that out there in terms of how we can define tomorrow's experience in parks. I will also say that he was very popular with guests, as we mentioned, would take selfies. I met him actually at the opening of Galaxy's Edge. He was there on that first day, and we shared space a little bit, and he was very cool, very charming, and spoke with many guests at the time. Popular with cast members too. For the most part, I would say that cast members looked at him favorably. Now that's just Disneyland. He's also obviously been, well, I should say that's just Disneyland while he was president. There's a lot more in his history since then, since he became president of Disney Parks. Here's some lists. A Disneyland Forward, that's something that happened or was developed under his guidance as president. The Epcot transformation, which if you want to call Epcot what happened is transformation, because so little of it seemed to hit the actual park. I think that we're all a little bit iffy on.
Well, yeah, a little bit on that. But here's the thing too. I do give a little bit of leeway when it comes to the Epcot thing, just because all of that stuff was kind of like in the middle and in and around the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like even the Avengers Campus stuff was in and around not the event. Yeah, well, Avengers Campus, yeah, but also the e-ticket was announced right before the pandemic. So I'm a little forgiving when the pandemic fell right in the middle of all these plans. But yeah, the Epcot renovation, a lot of people don't love it, but yeah. Now I haven't seen it yet in person. When I was there 2 years ago, or actually it's been almost 3 years now. But when I was there, it's crazy. It's almost been 3 years. But when I was there, it was a lot of walls. Wow. But when you go next month,
no walls.
No walls.
Free roam.
Whether or not that's considered a success. I guess that what we can say at least is that Epcot is better than it was before they did the transformation. It's not as good as it was supposed to be, but I think it's better than it was. Runaway Railway, both at Hollywood Studios and Walt Disney World and here at Disneyland. The World of Frozen in Hong Kong. Avengers Campus here, and also the Avengers Land that they're building. Or
now, I will say I want to circle back a little bit to Mickey and Minnie's, at least out here in California, right? Yeah. That whole thing was a huge win because Mickey and Minnie's is very popular. It's a great attraction. Yeah, me too. I love it. And then the reimagining of Toontown. Now, I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually really like it. I like the direction they went into. I like creating those little spaces with the grass and stuff that families can kind of lounge around and hang out. It feels very Disney to me because that's what Disney's about, is spending time with your family, right? That's what the whole thing with Walt was to have that element. I feel like Toontown and these spaces in that land kind of bring families together a little bit. You can have a little picnic with your fam. I think it's very cool. I love it. I love the new background music. It's very there's a lot of like Disney afternoon in there, which is very appropriate because that land opened at like the height of that Disney afternoon stuff in like the early 90s. So the whole land was kind of born out of that era. So I feel like the music, being of that Disney afternoon sort of speaks to the era that the land was born in, which I love. Yeah, overall, I think the Toontown stuff was a huge win for Josh D'Amaro, whether it be Toontown, the land, or the attraction. Now, here's the thing: it did get off to a bumpy start. It did. Our good friend Marty Snyder. I used to talk to him about this all the time when this was going on. But the fountain was broken. There was chipped paint on the root system for the tree and stuff. It was a mess. There was a lot of problems happening in Toontown in those early days.
Yes, I remember.
Remember all that and the Donald's boat stuff, but it seems like they've gotten a lot of that under control now, so that's good. So
yeah,
built in Paris, Zootopia at Shanghai, and then future projects: the new Villains Land at Magic Kingdom, Tropical Americas at Epcot. I'm sorry, at Animal Kingdom, Monstropolis at Hollywood Studios, the Disney Cruise Line expansion. They quadrupled the number of their boats. All that happened under D'Amaro's guidance. And then outside of parks, you've got Fortnite. Disney made a big run at Fortnite. Yeah. That was under D'Amaro, and Story Living, Cotino, which the jury's way out on that. But Story Living by Cotino was one of his ideas. Now, that all sounds great. And we're like, oh my gosh, of course we want D'Amaro to be running this company because that's all pretty good stuff. There are a few negatives, and this is something that is kind of close to my heart, close to what I value. Under D'Amaro's guidance, we have the reservation system.
Yes,
that's D'Amaro. We have Genie Plus Lightning Lane, paid Lightning Lane. We talked about Max Pass. That's not paid Lightning Lane. I'll just quickly get into that. Max Pass, what you were paying for, was not the actual Fast Pass. You were paying for the ability to make Fast Pass reservations on your phone. It was phones were just becoming a thing when they came up with that, being used throughout the park. And you could still get a physical Fast Pass. You could still get a traditional Fast Pass with Max Pass. What Max Pass, and that was free. The physical Fast Passes, which you go to the kiosks and pick one up, those were free. What you were paying for, the $10 that you were paying for, was the ability to put that on your phone and make those reservations on your phone rather than having to walk all the way to the attraction to get that physical Fast Pass. You had to walk to Space Mountain to get a Fast Pass for Space Mountain. With that,
I remember that.
So he came up with paid Lightning Lane, or the Genie Plus service. And then finally, under his watch, the revamped Magic Key system. Now, on that, it definitely is not what it used to be. The Magic Key system is not nearly as good as it used to be, mostly because of the reservation system, which is more impactful to Magic Keys than it is to single-day ticket holders. Having said that, during COVID, during the lockdown, it was suggested that they were going to revamp the annual pass system, and this is something that I believed well before the parks closed. I had long believed back in 2018, 2019, that annual passes were an incredibly good value. And I thought, I cannot believe they're letting us do this so cheaply. This is way too good of a deal. There's so much room for them to capitalize on this customer. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. So on the one hand, I wish you hadn't done that. And, we're paying the price for the reservation system and some of the other sort of perceived lack of benefits, I guess, from Magic Keys might have. But it was due. I gotta be honest.
And here's the thing. Josh D'Amaro, and we've talked about it a lot in this video. He knows how to smooth. He knows how to talk, right?
Yep.
A lot of these decisions, these negative decisions, whether it be like, what people's perception of like Lightning Lane and the reservation system and these negative things, even like the Magic Key stuff, a lot of fans, because Josh is very charming, and I've heard through the years, like, well, that bad stuff isn't Josh's fault. His hands are tied. I've been hearing that for years. His hands are tied. He's got to answer to Chapek. He's got to answer to Bob Iger. Okay, that's fine. But Josh is now going to be running the show. He will be the CEO. So let's see. Now let's see, right, conductor? How much of this was really Josh and how much of his hands were actually tied? Because now that he's top dog, I mean, let's see if the reservation system goes away. Let's see what happens,
Well, see, it's interesting you mentioned that, because when you look at what's going on at the Disneyland Resort currently, right now, as of today, is, I think, and this is my theory, I think what's going to happen is once the 2 Avengers attractions open, once Coco opens, and whoever in the next couple months gets announced to take over his spot, and my vote still stands as today, is going to hopefully be Bruce Vaughn, that currently runs Imagineering, because when Josh was chairman of Parks and Experiences, he had a really good relationship with Bruce Vaughn. And when Bruce Vaughn actually left the company during Chapek, when Chapek took over, Bruce Vaughn was running the Airbnb side of a company. So when Iger, begged him to come back, and I'm sure it was a humongous pay incentive, basically a blank check to come back, I think those 2 factors are going to play into possibly Vaughn taking over Josh's spot, because Vaughn has that enthusiasm and already that kind of mindset, thought process, creativity, and whoever takes over his spot, it could be only 2 gentlemen I think of. And this is my prediction. It's, obviously before Vaughn even gets considered for Josh's spot, obviously I think they're going to try to offer it to Joe Rohde. Will Joe Rohde take it? Maybe not, because he's only at WDI for
Consulting.
So I think Bruce Vaughn is the better choice. But at that time, if Bruce Vaughn does get named chairman, then at that point, I can either see Joe Rohde or Tom Staggs being offered to run Imagineering.
Well, that'd be cool. Yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. We'll see, because that will be announced. They're going to probably have to announce that pretty soon. I mean,
Yes.
so that we'll know probably within weeks, either maybe before Josh takes over officially. Like, some of these announcements, some of these positions that Josh is going to fill might even be announced before he officially takes over. So
100%.
Yep.
Oh,
it was due.
You know what? Hold on. I'm sorry. It wasn't Tom Skaggs. It was Scott Trowbridge. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Okay, Scott Trowbridge. Yeah, I think he came from Universal, I believe, came to Disney, and he was in charge of like Galaxy's Edge and what have you. Okay. Yeah. No, we'll see. We'll see who gets picked. I'm very, very curious.
We were getting such a good deal, and I still think we are getting a good deal, but that gap is closing. It's definitely getting narrower now with the cost and the benefits. It's getting to be at a point where they've certainly narrowed that value gap. And having said that, I feel like all 3 of those have had a net negative impact on the guest experience. And I would also say that any negative experience that we're having today as guests can be attributed to one of those 3 things: either Magic Keys, reservation system, or Lightning Lane. None of those are a net positive for the average guest, for the guest as a collective. Maybe for you as an individual, you like Lightning Lane because you only come once a year, or for whatever your reasons are. Which, agreed, the Lightning Lane is actually it's beneficial. It is an easier way to get to the park. But for the collective, for the entire population of Disneyland guests, for all 40,000 of us that are in the parks, all 3 of those situations are a net negative. So that considered before we decide whether or not we feel like this is something we should be excited about, given all that, there is still one more question that we need to answer. And that is, what do we think that Wall Street thinks? What do we think that industry insiders, what are their perceptions of this decision? And it's I know it's not important necessarily to you and me, but it's important to the overall success and health of the Disney company. Is this perceived? We can learn from this. We can be informed by what industry experts are saying and what Wall Street is thinking. Their reactions can help us determine if this is something that we should be excited about. The first thing I would say is that I believe that Wall Street will look favorably on the fact that he is the first CEO that has a parks background. Typically, like Eisner came from studios, Bob Iger came from studios. Walt Disney himself was a studio man. Now, he created the whole concept of theme parks as a byproduct. It was a byproduct of his studio experience. So this is new, and I think it's kind of fascinating that this is the case. It's new because it's fascinating because I think most would agree that while films make a lot of money, it's not what it used to be, and parks have become the financial backbone of the Disney company as a whole. That's something that is very consistent. You can rely on it. Film returns go up and down. We've seen,
Yeah, no, I agree with him on that. I agree, but I disagree where I think the studio is ultimately the most important thing in the company.
It is.
Because that's what, I mean, like I said before, I mean, like the entire company, the entire theme park division and the cruise lines and all this stuff depends on what the studio produces. And more now than ever. That all they do is IP stuff.
Well, see, I 100% agree with you. That's why I said early on, the studios are hurting horrendously bad. That's why Dana Walden is in the position she's going to be in to hopefully correct that problem.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did see on a post, and again, I can't remember where I saw it in the last 72 hours, because there's been so much information from Damaro to Dana Walden to all the stuff happening at DCA, and then so on, so on, and so on. It just kept, dropping like crazy. I think there was a statement that Damaro put out somewhere, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember where I saw it, was that he was, now becoming the new CEO, he wants to focus on bringing back things originally that the parks lost. I don't know what that comment means. It can mean a variety of things. So who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, that's a big question mark. I saw that as well. I think some things are off limits. Like, I mean, it's easy for your brain to kind of go towards and this is where my head went initially, was like, oh, okay, free fast pass, right? I don't think he'll bring that back, just because I think that's become such a money maker for them.
I think the reservation system will be easier to let go.
I agreed, conductor. I think that might be where that's at. Going to the parks, they've really whittled down the reservation system over there in Florida already. It's a little more prevalent out here in California, but I could see him doing that. That would be a huge win out the gate for Daddy Josh. I mean, that would be a big deal for him, So yeah, we'll see. And also, real quick too, before we continue with Dave, Josh is a theme park guy, and that was the one thing that worried me about the guy, because
Sure.
we have all this stuff going on, like AI and streaming and all this stuff going on in Hollywood, and here comes this theme park guy who doesn't have any experience. So I think it was really smart for Disney to elevate Dana Walden to that president position, and I think for that reason, I think Wall Street's very happy, because you have the studio person high in command. You have Josh, he's a parks guy. And also the one thing that I think that Wall Street loves about Josh, the Fortnite stuff, man. And I've talked a lot about this with Seymour Duck here on the channel, but like that Fortnite stuff is an absolute gold mine. And I think gaming is going to be a big part of Disney's future. So I think Wall Street loves that about Josh.
some really poor performance. They've lost a bunch of money on a bunch of movies, but they've also made a bunch of money on other movies. But parks is one of the most consistent, reliable revenue streams for the Disney company. So I feel like Wall Street is going to look favorably on his parks background. Now, having said that, they might look and say, well, okay, so he's parks, but that's only half the operation. What about movies? What about TV shows? What about streaming and all that? That's why they retained Dana Walden in such a high level. She's now going to be the chief creative officer. She's president. Mind you, Iger was president and CEO. Tomorrow's just CEO. He's no longer president. He's not president. Dana Walden is president of the Disney company and chief creative officer. So she's going to have a lot of decision making, a lot of responsibility for that side, giving all the support necessary to tomorrow as chief executive officer. And again, by all accounts, she's very well qualified for this and was darn near named chief executive officer of the Disney company in general because of her accomplished resume. I think also investors and industry insiders are going to see this as an obvious, visible upgrade to Chapek, and maybe perhaps even to Iger. I mean, I feel like you could replace Tomorrow with Iger, right? I'm sorry, replace Iger with Tomorrow, and still get the same type of leadership again because they've been working so closely together. But Iger was never really perceived as somebody who was going to be a long-term solution for Disney. So really, the question is he better than Chapek? Can Tomorrow stand on its own? In a way that Chapek couldn't? Yeah, I think they're going to.
I agree with Dave, and I've been saying it the whole time. I agree with Dave. The Achilles heel for Bob Chapek was he didn't know how to talk to anybody. He was an absolute disaster when it came to those interpersonal relationships in the industry and all that. And that's what killed it. That's what killed all of it with him. And obviously, to be fair to Chapek as well, though, Bob Iger did him dirty. Yes. Bob Iger threw him the keys to the kingdom right before the lockdowns, right before the pandemic. And, honestly, I mean, I think any CEO would have a hard time under those conditions. But at the end of the day, though, Chapek did a lot of his own damage. Bob Iger didn't do him any favors, but no. Chapek definitely, yeah.
I'm going to look at that as a yes. And finally, with respect to being able to follow in the footsteps to fill the shoes of Iger, and they're pretty big shoes, whether or not you feel like Iger was a good CEO, he was a successful CEO. There's a lot of things. His legacy, I mean, he did amazing stuff, but his legacy is going to be basically acquisitions.
Yep.
His legacy will be bringing new intellectual property under the Disney umbrella. Disney now owns Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Lucasfilm, Marvel.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. A lot of Disney fans, I hear this all the time from the fandom, the diehard fans. A lot of fans don't like the acquisition part of the Bob Iger era, right? Yeah. Oh, well, Marvel, that's not Disney. Oh, Star Wars, that's not Disney. But here's the thing about Disney. A lot of things weren't Disney until they were Disney. Like, for example, Disney started off as a little cartoon studio. Live action, when Disney started, live action was really not Disney until Walt Disney made live action Disney. Theme parks were not Disney until they were part of Disney in 1955. So I think Disney as a company has shown they've constantly expanded out as to what it means to be Disney. And you have to do that. That's why Disney is literally the only Hollywood studio that the only Hollywood studio that has not been bought out. Disney has bought other things out, but they haven't been bought out themselves. They're the only ones. And I think a lot of that is because they've been willing to evolve what it means to be Disney. And you have to, man. I mean, if we had the same Disney company from like the 70s, we'd be dead in the water. It would have been bought out by Amazon or something, or Apple or some big tech company, right? Netflix. Did Bob Iger going in there and buying Star Wars, buying Marvel, buying Fox, I know a lot of diehard fans don't like those decisions. They don't think those brands are Disney, but that helped Disney grow as a company. It helped expand the fan base to just outside of like the Princess Disney thing. And it also made Disney a bigger company, which also prevented or made it a little harder for other companies to come in and swallow them up. So it was very much necessary. And that's thanks to Bob Iger. So yeah, acquisitions are 100% Bob Iger's legacy.
Pixar. He bought 20th Century Fox. He bought their entire library. My goodness. And of course, Disney Plus. That is going to be Iger's legacy, is acquisitions and Disney Plus. Having said that, that's the exact reason why I don't think that tomorrow's going to have to worry about following in his footsteps, because what's left to do? Honestly,
left to buy.
I don't think he's. Yeah. I don't even think that's on his, long-term vision at all. He's not trying. There's no. What else are they going to buy? I mean, they bought it all. So I don't think that that's going to be tomorrow's vision, tomorrow's focus. Hopefully, again, considering his background, it's going to be parks. And again, I really do think that's a good thing. Having a parks guy as leading the Disney company.
I think parks are a big part of the equation, but I think that Josh is going to be way more bullish on gaming than a lot of people think. I think that we're going to see a lot of gaming stuff at D23. Disney is all in on that Fortnite stuff, dude.
Yeah. Well, because you think about it, the infrastructure is kind of already there. At least at the Disneyland Resort. I don't know about Walt Disney World, because you think about it, Disney does have an app, because I've tried it myself, because curiosity years ago. Disney has an app where you can interact with different, elements of the park, play trivia. So they have they have the capability. On top of that, they've partnered with Pokemon Go. I've seen kids constantly doing that in the Disneyland Resort bubble. So for Fortnite and Epic Games, I truly honestly believe that he will incorporate that a lot more. But when he made that comment, that statement, I don't know if he just kind of felt overwhelmed and he threw a comment out there just to throw one out there. But when he's saying that he wants to go back to things that were cut or lost at the parks, when I think about something like that, and you made a great point about Bob Iger with all the acquisitions, could this be another legacy move where Tomorrow, who has always been in the parks and park involvement, and then especially with WDI being from what Bruce Vaughn had to work with when he got hired back to what it is now, could another legacy move be that tomorrow might kind of go halves and halves until the studio side really kind of gets cleaned up by Dana Walden? Could we see attractions? I know I'm going to get burned for this, but could we see attractions be, constructed and built in the parks that have no IP base, like Space, like, others? Could we see that in the next couple years while Dana Walden works her butt off to get the studio side cleaned up? Because I do kind of feel it is a little unfair that the Disney company has leaned so much, so much on IP, where it's to the point, if an IP based off a movie franchise does not do well in the box office, then that just kind of is just thrown on the shelf for something that could have been truly amazing to be incorporated in the parks, and that was shelved because the box office numbers is not what they wanted.
Yeah, no, that's a great point when you say bring things back. I mean, maybe they will bring back non-IP rides. Maybe they will bring back the People Mover, for example, right? I mean, Josh Giamaro has proven
he has a lot of moves he can play from. A lot of moves.
Oh, 100%.
And there's a lot of there's a laundry list of things that Josh has literally heard from fans for years, even before COVID, that were terminated under Iger's first go around as CEO, that got terminated. So, and again, like we kind of talked about him walking around the parks and interacting with guests, Josh is a relations guy. This guy loves being in front of the cameras. He loves communicating. He loves being in the parks in the middle of the chaos, hanging out with guests and all this stuff. He's like Kevin Feige, the same thing. So, in all reality, if anyone's going to run the company that's not 100% like business minded, like kind of like this, he is more like this. So he has a broader view of you, you know what we can possibly see. And that's why I kind of hint at maybe original concept attractions with no IP would not be such a horrible thing
Yeah.
that I'm sure I'm going to get burned for saying. But in the meanwhile, for a couple of years, if they want to incorporate something, I'm not saying directly the people mover because that that has its own, crazy whatever kind of nonsense, but just non-IP based attractions would be another legacy move by tomorrow. And again, this guy has always, for his entire career of 27 years, been surrounded by guests, been surrounded by Imagineering, been surrounded by the parks, and he doesn't have that complete business mind attitude where it's like, nope, I'm going to do what's best for me and the company and financially and the hell with everything. That's why Chapek also failed. But again, there were a handful of things that Chapek failed on, and even Iger to a point. We saw in the New York Times articles how many times did it list that WDI Imagineering went to the board, went to Iger, and it wasn't even really Josh to a point, but it was more to the board, to the Iger, and said, "Hey, what about a Tomorrowland remodel, or what about this? What about new additions to this area? What about this infrastructure? What about the?" And almost every single one of those ideas was annexed and canceled because it wasn't business minded. Now, do keep in mind, when you run a business, obviously you can't say yes to everything. I understand that from a business standpoint, you can't, because then you would go broke. But on the same time, when you have Imagineering coming out with wonderful concepts, basically to print money in the park, and you might go in the red at the beginning when you're building it and developing the land or attraction. You might go in the red, but if you think in the future what it's going to bring for you in the black, then it's kind of like, that's why I do agree with you. I agree with David. It's probably a good time to shake things up and have a parks guy running the company,
Let's see how
because
it is.
like David said, literally all the CEOs before tomorrow were all studio people. So
Yeah.
in a way, having Dana Walden that close, being number two, running the studio side, it's wonderful. And again, other people will say, "Oh, that's a horrible idea." Well, again, I personally think we've had too many studio people in charge. I think shaking it up, having a parks guy in charge is only going to benefit the parks. It's going to benefit the experiences. It's going to benefit everybody that visits the parks every single day. Is a magic key holder. Now, when David mentioned about, you know, the magic keys and the reservation system being tomorrow, and how he felt like he was basically tied behind his back, and it was really Iger and the board make again, no more excuses. March 18th
It's
and
him.
beyond that is going to be Judgment Day. Whoever takes over tomorrow's spot as chairman, we're going to really see if he was lying or not lying. And that's something I'm very interested to see.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm very curious when tomorrow takes over, to your point, how much of these past decisions was tomorrow, or how much of it was his boss putting a mandate on him. So,
Yes.
we'll see when he becomes the top dog, and let's just say when he becomes CEO in March, and he does get rid of the reservation system. He does, bring back non-IP attractions. He does bring back even hand-drawn animation and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
So with that, let's give our final thoughts. How do, like, give you my final, I'll tell you what I believe, what I think. And that is, given the answer to those three questions, I do think that clearly tomorrow's choice is a net positive for me and for Disney guests who are like me. The negatives that we talked about, the lightning lane, reservation system, magic keys, I mean, all that's kind of baked in. It's a situation now that's part of our daily lives that's baked in. I don't know if he can make more decisions as bad as those. I feel like that's kind of the limit, I'm hoping. And that, mind you, anything that he does to sort of change or improve that is only going to be another win for him. And if he were to find some way to get rid of the reservation system, if he could make that decision, he would go down in history as the greatest president. From my opinion, as the greatest chief executive officer of the Disney company ever. Getting rid of the reservation system for me is like, I'm a what do they call that? I'm a one issue voter, as they say. As we mentioned before, I think he's the best possible choice when it comes to being a face of the company, and it's very important. He's a better face. I think he's a better face than Iger, obviously a better face than Chapek, and possibly a better face than Eisner. We just spoke already about his being able to delegate operations for film and studios, et cetera, to Dana Walden. She can be in charge of that. Yeah. And on that note, I do think that something that was happening, and this doesn't get talked about a lot, something that was happening of late was, and this is in direct contrast to how Chapek ran things. Chapek's answer to the Imagineering was to fire them or to make them move to Florida, as opposed to working here in Hollywood where talent lives. It was a terrible decision, and it was one that cost them a lot of really high quality Imagineering talent. Lots of people left, including the likes of Joe Rohde. Bruce Vaughn, saying his name, he's back. He's now leading Imagineering, and quietly they have been allowing Imagineering to sort of run their own ship. There's not a lot of oversight with Imagineering, and I don't think, and I should say, I think that was something that Damaro was leading. I think he was the one pushing for that. Let the Imagineers do what they're good at, and I feel like there's a good chance with Damaro's leadership that can continue and perhaps even become more available, more obvious. Looking forward to a Villain's Land and Toy Story over there at Magic Kingdom. Looking forward to Monstropolis at Hollywood Studios. Looking forward to Avatar and Disneyland Forward here. Letting Imagineers create and follow up on their vision as opposed to limiting them with budget constraints. And on that was, I was asked often in the past year or two, who would I like to see run Disneyland, or who would I like to see run the Disney company? And the answer that I gave most often is, I don't know who the right person is. I'm not a headhunter. I don't know who's right or who's wrong, but I do know what I wanted, and what I wanted, or what I want, is somebody who is passionate, who has a real love for Disney, who's passionate about the parks, and who's passionate about all the entertainment as well. One or the other. I just want them to love Disney movies or love Disney parks. And I feel like Josh Damaro is the closest thing that we're going to get to that kind of person, because I do believe that he does love Disney parks, and that's going to help him make good decisions, I think, as a chief executive. Hopefully it'll inspire him to do something about I'm talking to you, Josh, tomorrow. Please I don't know how much how much this gets filtered up to you, but please end that reservation system. That's all I wanted, was just somebody who has a true love and appreciation. I feel like that was Eisner. That's what made Eisner great, is that he loved it. Now his choices were sometimes a little bit garish, a little bit over the top, but he also made really good choices too because of it. And he was excited about it, and he was passionate about it, and he wanted to create, and he wanted to entertain, hoping that is something that we'll get from Josh tomorrow as well.
Great video from Dave from Fresh Baked. Again, both of these videos came from his secondary channel. So make sure, everybody at home, make sure you go down in the description. If you're not subscribed to Fresh Bake Presents, make sure you go ahead and do so. We love Dave. Dave has been in this community for a very long time, doing amazing work. And he's always in the parks. He's always friendly. Really, really cool dude. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's an exciting time to be a fan. We have a new era ahead of us. We'll see what Josh can do. I mean, I agree with him. I mean, I want somebody who has a passion for this stuff. Obviously, Josh does. Obviously, Josh even has a passion for interacting with guests. I mean, that's what he's kind of known for, is being in the parks, on the ground, interacting. That's important. I've been critical of him in the past. I don't love everything he's done, and Dave laid out a bunch of stuff, and even stuff like the D23 Expo with all that blue sky nonsense.
Yeah, that was bad.
Oh, really bad. Josh's resume is not perfect, but I agree with Dave in that he's probably the best we're going to get, and I think that him paired up with a brilliant mind like Dana Walden, I think we're in good hands. Before we get out of here, Conductor, any final word on the video and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you just touched upon the blue sky thing, and now that I think about it more and more and more, and then over the years of knowing you and doing content and talking about Disney and the vast majority of subjects, I have to ask you something that literally just popped in my mind. Is when that blue sky D23 happened, okay? That was in 2022, okay? Do you honestly think Tomorrow had a choice in that? The reason I bring that up, and I'm not defending the guy, but I'm not going to sink his boat either, is Iger came back and he had to do damage control everywhere. And that included finances, that included what Chapek damaged, Imagineering, the studio side, investments, shareholders, parks, the whole 9 yards. Do you think that D23 Expo was Iger saying, hey, I had to cut the budget way back. I had to do damage control. Just go out there, do the best you can, but I can't allow you to offer stuff that we can't guarantee, or at least semi-guarantee. Do you think that blue sky thing was more of Iger making that call than it was Tomorrow making that call?
Yeah, I believe that blue sky stuff was actually under Chapek as CEO, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, though, your point still is you still make a great point. I'm not even sure about that. But I thought it was Chapek. But there's a lot of validity to that theory, though, where it's like, yeah, don't go out there on stage and promise, don't write checks that your ass can't cash. You know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of this mentality where it's like, we can't really deliver right now. So sure, blue sky is the best we got. So that's fair. That's a fair point. And very, very possible. And that's the thing. When Josh takes over, we're going to see the real Josh. Because all leading up to this point, Josh has been an executive trying to impress his boss.
Yes.
But now he's the main dude. He's that guy. You know what I'm saying? So now we're going to see the real Josh and what direction he really wants to take the company. And that's the thing. You never really know with these executives how they are until they have full control. Now, obviously, when I say full control, I mean, there is a little bit of a caveat there. I mean, he still has to answer to the board and obviously the shareholders and what have you, but he's got a lot of freedom now to do a lot of things. So we'll see what goes. We'll see what comes back. We'll see the decisions he makes. And he potentially could be a fantastic CEO. So we'll kind of wait and see, you know?
And I really hope so. I really
Me
honestly
too.
hope so. Because Iger has made it very clear. Just because he's stepping away from the responsibilities, it's already been put out there. He's still going to be part of the board,
Yep.
and he's still going to be advising until December the 31st, 2026. So, again, when we watched that interview last night, I agree with you 100%. I didn't like that because, again, if you watch the full thing, um, again, when I did my live stream earlier today with Hollow Gelato, it was only a fraction of it, but I think it was like a full 10 minutes or so, or 11 minutes. When you watch the full thing, geez, Tomorrow looked at Iger multiple times during
See.
interesting questions. So personally, for me, I agree with you. Iger shouldn't have been part of that. What shouldn't happen is either Tomorrow by himself or Tomorrow and Walden, and that would
Yes.
have been the first test without Iger in the room to see, okay, can he handle an interview? Because again, when you watch Gorman on that video, and I will send it to you so that way you can watch it, because I don't
Yeah.
know if you've seen it from Bloomberg. You know, Gorman said during that video was that him, the board, Vaughn, I think he mentioned Vaughn. I could be wrong, but everyone in the company supports Josh. There is no one that he named that has no faith in him. So again, everything's on Josh's side, but again, I see where you're coming from,
Yeah.
because I think Iger should have just not been there, and it
No.
would have been a great point to further solidify not just to Iger, but to the board, to the shareholders, to everyone that broke this news. Hey, this guy can handle himself. Because
Yeah.
again, like you said, he is what you call yourself, a vibes guy. Kind of just like, okay, I'm going to go
Yeah.
in the park, hang out, and, interact with people. Great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But again, when you have Iger, your boss, for
Right
another
there.
right there, and every time David asked him a question and it was too technical, he looked over at Iger
See.
in kind of fear, and that's what scares me, because that's kind of what started with JPEG, and that's what people fear that could
Yeah, I
happen in a
don't
second go around.
100%. I don't like the fact that Bob Iger was there. I don't. I mean, I think Bob Iger should have respected the fact that he's passing the torch to Demaro. Let Demaro be his own man. You don't need to be sharing the spotlight. You know what I'm
No.
saying? And to have that tension in the room,
Oh, dude.
it's not good. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that was not. And then a lot of people are not talking about that, you know.
No.
But
No, they're not.
Iger should. Yeah, they're not talking about it. But Iger should not have been there, and
No.
it should have been Josh or Dana with him, you know.
Yes.
But Bob Iger seems to have a little bit of this thing where I think he's having a hard time. Like, I think Bob Iger wants to retire and wants to leave, but there's a part of him that is sort of like unable to move on, you know.
I don't think he wants to leave. He says that on camera, but I don't think so, dude.
Yeah.
He sits there on the Walt Disney Studios street with Iger and David, and he clearly says, "Oh yeah, I want to step away and have some quiet." No, you don't. Get out of
Yeah.
here.
I
Even
know. Yeah.
even if you watched that interview, I think you did, right? Right, OG? You watched it?
The interview, I've seen pieces of it. I haven't seen the whole thing in its
Okay.
entirety.
Okay. I definitely encourage you to watch the entirety of it, because when they're towards the end of the segment and they're on studio property, and Iger makes that comment, and David kind of even calls him out for it. He's all like, "No, you're not. You're not going to be quiet. You're not going to. No, Get out of here. So
Yeah.
even David knows it. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's just he said, again, Iger. I'm not going to say he's a yes man, but he kind of tries to fool people and think we're all stupid, which we're not. And we've conned on over the years, especially learning from what Chapek did and how he meddled with that behind the scenes and how he did damage to Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
He's not fooling anybody. I'm sorry,
No.
but
Yeah. No.
he's
Yeah. No. You're right. You're right. Bob Iger has. I've been seeing a lot of lately, kind of coming through a little bit of micromanagey kind of vibes, and sitting there and keeping an eye on tomorrow while he's doing the interview. It was like, this is not a good look. And that's why I'm so ready for this Bob Iger era to be over with. And again, I'm not even a Bob Iger hater. I fully acknowledge he's done a lot of great stuff. The acquisitions are huge. I just think that he's overstayed his welcome. He needs to move on. And it's frustrating. But Mr. Conductor, I do appreciate you, brother. Always fun doing these with you. I love doing these. We'll do another one next week. Before we get out of here, I have two things I want to share. The lovely, the one and only Miss Me Fan. She does our lovely outro here on OG55. Make sure you follow her on Instagram. She's also on YouTube. She goes to all these really fun, cool places like this one right here. Kind of a different take on Chinese food, which actually looks really, really good. But check her out on Instagram. You can also check her out on YouTube, and all that information will be in the description down below. Support Mimi. We love and support Miss Mimi Fan. We also have a good friend here, Jared from Capture the Magic, who's always on OG55 and collaborating with us and on Theme Park Conductors channel. He's got a great t-shirt shop where you can get these nerdy designs, CTM apparel. If you use promo code OG55, you'll get 10% off of these great designs. So make sure you check out the store, which is also in the description down below. Theme Park Conductor, my friend, it's always good having you on. I love talking shop with you. If you can remind everybody at home where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You could find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor, on Instagram at theme_park_conductor. You can also find me on X at Theme Conductor, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we break down Disney and Universal news. We speculate, we talk rumors, we even talk about the studio side, and better believe we're going to be talking more about this studio side a lot more, because now that we have new leadership involved with Dana Walden and Josh tomorrow, so we definitely will be talking a lot about that, because I have some very spicy opinions about that, and I kind of shared them tonight. And we have amazing guests like the one and only Orange Grove 55 with that wild, wicked patent hairstyle I love so much, and so many others. Tommy Toon World with his world famous food reviews, and a big shout out to Tommy Toon World. This guy,
Yeah.
the modern day theme park Steven Spielberg food review camera guy. This guy is this guy is phenomenal when it comes to filming content when it revolves around food. He even got a big praise by Hey Bricky himself the other night on my Conductor Sunday live stream. And he's even done multiple food reviews with the one and only Orange Grove 55. So this guy knows his stuff. Definitely go check him out on YouTube and social medias. And a little programming note as well. For many of you that probably will watch this video sometime tomorrow, I will be at DCA tomorrow, which is February the 5th and February the 6th, to kind of get in the mood for DCA's 25th anniversary. And one idea I had, OG, I don't know if this would be an awesome idea, but think about it. This would be my idea. Okay. February the 8th, right? DCA's actual 25th birthday. What if they set a stage up, kind of like what they did for the 70th, when you had Bob Iger and DeMauro get on the little stage right inside the ticket booth area,
Right.
and you set up a stage literally right in front of the lagoon, and you have Chapek, geez, I'm so you you have Eisner come up, say a few words, since he was the catalyst behind building DCA. Then you have Iger come up, say a few words, but then they leave it to Josh tomorrow to speak some words as appointed new CEO. How cool would that be?
It'd be incredible. It'd be incredible. Yeah, it's crazy. They're doing a lot more for DCA's 25th anniversary than I thought they were going to do. Kudos to Disney for that. So that's very good news, So we'll see. But have a great time at the parks. Are you going to film some content when you're down there?
Absolutely. I'm going to film some content.
Conductor is there. So make sure you subscribe to Theme Park Conductor to check out all that content. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG50.
Thank you so much for watching OG55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and become a member today. Mwah!